Hey guys, NJ here and welcome to this video where we are going to be having a good close look at the Aomway Commander V1 goggles. Now this is a video review that I have had a lot of my subscribers nipping at my heels to get done, but there is a very good reason for why I've held off doing this review. I was pretty much one of the first to get hold of these. I've had these for a good couple of months and initially I was going to come straight out and start talking about them, but then I stopped myself simply because the goggles are the one thing you really need to spend some time with and live with before you form an opinion on them, because they're the one thing that are a kind of a real consistent. You know, the quads will come and go, but the one thing that tends to stick around for a decent amount of time at least is the goggles you use. And the main reason for that is they're a heavy investment. You know, if you're looking at Fatsharks, that obviously they're expensive goggles, especially if you're looking towards things like the HD series, where things start getting very pricey indeed, you know, upwards of, you know, $400 to $500. So these are a very competitive alternative. I say they're probably in line with the V3s, which are the Fatshark equivalents, which are the 16:9 goggles. They're in. They actually come in, from what I can see, around $80 to $100 cheaper than those. And of course, these guys have diversity built straight in. So this makes this a very compelling option at a very good price point. But really we need to know a couple of big questions. Is this worth it? Because it's not a Fatshark. Is this alternative brand? And Aomway are known for doing some, you know, some budget range stuff, but good quality things. And more to the point, will I switch to them? I currently use Fatshark attitudes. They're very old attitudes. They're the V1s. But again, I've been happy with them. I used them since they were first released. Why should I switch? Is it worth it? Let's start by having a closer look, and we'll get to that conclusion at the end. These goggles have a field of view of 32 degrees. They are glass optics, binocular, because there's two screens, one for each eye. The displays in them are an 854 by 480 pixel, which is WVGA, LCD displays with an LED backlight. It does support 3D functionality. This is either through, it's a side-by-side 3D functionality, and it's either through the AV input for 3D or for the HD input, because of course this does have an HDMI input, and this isn't the normal size HDMI, this is the mini size HDMI, so you will need an adapter for that, or a cable which goes from HDMI to mini HDMI. So yeah, it will do a 720 up to 60 FPS input via that, and again support the 3D for it. What else have we got? It has Ipd adjustment. Now this is a real kind of important one for me, and it was the reason back in the day when I bought my attitudes, my Fatshark attitudes, it was the real selling point for me, because I tried some original dominators and I hated the fact that you couldn't adjust the interpupillar distance. And just for my eyes anyway, I kept trying to move the goggles around to get them kind of in that nice sweet spot where I could see all the screen and not see too much of a blurred edge. So the Ipd adjustment was a massive yes for me, and I'm really glad that it's in here. It does have a slight, it's not a ratchet like the Fatsharks do, but there is enough resistance to where they're not moving if you adjust them and leave them. I haven't found that they've slipped from where I've left them, but I know that can vary model to model. In terms of the distance for the Ipd, it will go between 59 and 69 millimeters, so that's from the center of each pupil, one to the other. You can change that between 59 millimeters at the minimum and 69 millimeters all the way out, so quite a wide difference there for accommodating different people's Ipd. There is an audio output on the top for a standard audio jack, for a mini jack if you want to plug in a set of headphones, and you know, provided your quad has a microphone on it, or your camera does, or your VTX does, so that you can pick up audio, you can go in through that. In terms of what you can adjust in operation, you've got brightness, contrast, channel selection, display mode, DVR recording, because we've got a micro SD card slot here which will support up to a 32GB card. Obviously you want to put in something like a class 10 to make sure you don't get any stuttering or drop frames or anything, and that will give you 30 frames per second it will record at. These screens are a 16:9 format like the Fatshark V3s. When I was flying on my Attitudes, I was always used to 4:3, much like the aspect ratio of many of the cameras that are out there. There are cameras like the Monster V2 and the Monster V1 by Foxeer. I've done a video on that, which will be correct in terms of the aspect ratio to the 16:9 in these goggles. Having said that, I do have quads obviously that run on 4:3. I really quickly got used to adjusting to having the picture just stretched a little bit further out. It did not bother me at all. I thought it was good. At first it was a little bit weird. Paul from BMS Web actually said something very funny to me. He said it actually makes the gates a little bit wider when you're going through them in a race. So yeah, although that did make me chuckle, that's something to think about. Honestly, I was used to it very quickly. I use quite a warped lens anyway when I fly freestyle. I use a 2.1 lens, which is very fish-eyed. So I'm used to my perspective being a little bit skewed anyway, so this kind of thing, having that extra screen real estate on the sides, is no issue for me. And then it's also great when you're using a proper 16:9 camera because you just get all that extra information. In terms of the screen size in the goggles, now obviously even if I power these on, there's no real way for me to kind of show you what it's like in here. But it's a really nice size. It feels comparable to my Attitudes, and there are size guides on the Fatshark Attitudes if you look on Fatshark's website, if you want to understand roughly where that will sit. But they feel like a nice size to display, again in that 16:9 aspect ratio as I've mentioned. Once you've got that IPD dialed in and you've got everything nice, then it's good. I did find that these are kind of sweet spot critical compared to my Fatsharks. I can kind of throw them on and more or less when I put them on my face they're nearly always in good focus. I find with these there is kind of a fine movement sweet spot that you have to hit, even if you've got your IPD in the perfect place, and it might have something to do with the distance of those screens to your eyes. It might have something to do with the fact that I'm using the thicker foam and my eyes are further away. If I was perhaps using the thinner foam and my eyes were a little bit closer and that fit my face profile, that might not be more of an issue. Moving on from there, it does Ntsc and Pal. It will auto switch between those two things. The DVR will only record when it is in RF mode, where it's receiving RF from the diversity modules, or when it's receiving via the AV in. Now the AV in is this guy under here. There is a cable that comes with the pack, which is this guy, and you can see it's a 3-pin jack there, so you have video down one and then left and right audio. So that guy will plug into there, and then you can run video either in or out of that from that port. So that's all very well and nice. In terms of the diversity, now this is really worth talking about here. I've found this is my first proper diversity set of goggles, and I wasn't expecting it to be so incredibly brilliant compared to my standard Fatsharks with just the single module in. But it does appear that not only is this a great improvement just by having diversity, this diversity is really good in its own right. These two receiver modules work really well together, and it's a really seamless experience. I don't notice any harsh switching. You do actually get a little flash which shows you which antenna it's flicking to get the best signal depending on where you are, whether you're out in front of the patch or whether you've gone behind yourself. It will obviously flick over to the Omni antenna, the clove leaf. But I never notice any flickering or anything nasty in the goggles when that happens. So it really is a huge thumbs up from me when it comes to the diversity performance on these. They really are very, very good, and I've had very solid performance. The kit does come with a couple of interesting things. It comes with this patch here, which is their yeah, I mean it's okay. I've had a go of it. It's not terrible. but it's nothing great, certainly not compared to my two favourite patches, which are the this guy here, which is the Menace Invader patch. I absolutely love that. That pretty much is my favourite, and also the small Immersion RC patch, which is also great. I think that's between these two, sit around 5 to 8 dBi. As I said, this is nice they've included a patch, but I would quickly replace it out. I mean, these are cheap. These are about £12 here in the UK for the Menace one, and that's easily my favourite. So I'd switch to one of those over this, but you know, it's nice they included it. Unfortunately, they also included one of these, which is the terrible ducky antenna. They're just so rubbish. These linear polarized antennas for reception, they're no good. So really, that's worth nothing more than throwing in the bin. What you want, and I don't know why they didn't include one of their Aomway 5.8 circular polarized antennas, because this thing's great. I've had this for well over a year, maybe longer. It's still performing great. It's still one of my favourite to use on the reception side. I don't tend to use it on the quad side because I find they break, but they do an excellent job on the goggle side of things. It's Aomway. Why didn't they include that with the goggles? They really should have. But anyway, with these two as a combination, they really are very, very good. Now, a couple of other things we should talk about. The DVR, when you turn the DVR on, it will require you to turn off the RF module. Now, as I said, this is actually like a sample, so this is not the one that you'll be getting if you order these now. For instance, you'll notice I've got no screen print on here. You'll have screen print as to what the buttons do. They've also now included a top section strap holder so that you can run a third strap round the top. I believe that comes included, just to help with positioning. So it won't be like this, it will have a third strap over the top to connect to there, which of course you can take off if you just don't want it to mess your hair up, or you just prefer the band like this. In terms of power, it will take between, I think it's between a 2 and a 4S, not that I wonder why you'd want to strap a huge great 4S to the side of your head. But you can use Fatshark batteries, no problems with that, or you can put it into the back here, which is nice just to add a little bit of balance if you so desire. It does come with one of these connectors like this, so that you can connect to a balance lead and it actually has a 2, 3 or 4S connection there, and then goes off to a barrel jack so that you can plug into the side of your Aomways there. And then you can run it round to the back and have this all strapped up the back, so that's quite nice. But of course you can also use a more traditional battery like this. I've just got one of these things and I just clip that onto the side and plug in that way. So all your Fatshark batteries, you can do that kind of thing as well if you want. There's a few options. Now, one of the more important things to talk about here is the fit and the comfort of these, and it's going to be incredibly subjective to your face shape. The easiest way I can show you this, let me just loosen this so I can put that down, is for you to look at the actual face profile here. Now, this is actually quite flat. It's flat and then it starts to curve up at the edges. Now this will suit your face if your face is more along the lines of this kind of profile. I know Stu from UAV Futures said that he found these to be absolutely insanely comfortable and he absolutely loves them, and they obviously fit his face shape really well. I personally found that that was not the case for me. The shape that absolutely fit my face perfectly and are very comfortable are my Fatshark Attitudes, and if you look at the Fatsharks, can you see how much deeper the curve is? So this shape, standard Fatshark shape, really does work for me. And it's interesting, I've not seen many people say, yeah, I get light leak from Fatsharks, they don't fit. I think Aomway could have probably gone more along the lines of this shape and accommodated more people, to be honest with you. If once again bring that back into view, can you see how much flatter that is now after looking at one against the other? You've got that profile and then you've got that profile. You can really see the curve difference. So it's a very subjective thing. So what I found is I can wear them and they're comfortable enough. It does come with 2 pieces of foam. I chose to use the thickest piece of foam because that gave me the greatest chance of, as my face kind of pressed in against this, this area will stay more like the original curve of the Fatsharks, if that makes sense. So the fact that the larger piece of foam worked better for me. It does come with a spare thinner piece of foam. You can see that the foam part that mounts to the goggles themselves is quite skinny here, whereas you can see it's a lot thicker here. So you have two different types of foam, and it is literally velcroed. You can see the velcro padding there, so that's quite nice. It'd be easy to replace and get new pieces. But really I think what they could do with is coming out with a third piece of foam that is maybe like thicker here and comes a little bit thinner and then thicker. If they actually had something that mimicked this kind of face profile, I'd certainly be happy. But you know, I've let lots of different people try this out, and I've seen or heard no real complaints on the comfort. I'm just telling you my experience because I have been using these extensively for a couple of months. So the other point, the point at which I really find it kind of rubs for me a little bit, is you can see here you've got this kind of sharp edge where the nose goes. Now again, depending on the size of your nose, that's either not going to be an issue at all, or it might. It did in my case. I just caught my nose on this kind of lip here, and again, if you look at the ergonomics of what they've done here on the Fatsharks, and you can really see how worn out my attitudes are here, but this, how it's so smooth all along here. There's no sharp edges, so that if the bridge of your nose gets in this part here, it's not nearly as uncomfortable as if you have that issue here. So really there's a few form things I think could be improved, but on the whole it's not that bad. You know, I do use these a lot and I don't come away thinking, ouch, that was uncomfortable. I just noticed they're not as comfortable as my Fatshark attitudes, and that's what I'm trying to put across here. Just have a little think about it in terms of your face shape and whether you think this will work for you. One other thing I just want to mention regarding this foam, this area of foam, it's just so thin, it doesn't really do much in the way of actually kind of cushioning the top of your nose. So I think they could have gone a little thicker with the foam here. That would have made more sense, because being this thin and being an area where a lot of sweat accumulates, you'll notice that, you know, things are starting to, some of the glue's starting to come away on the felt here. I mean, that's easy enough to re-glue and it's not the biggest issue in the world, but I do feel like this whole section here should have been a thicker piece of foam. Just a minor gripe, but something I thought I should point out along with the other things. You'll also notice here the this little grill here. This is for an inbuilt fan. Really great that they've built something in, and it's nice and discreet. It's not a lump that sits on the top. It's built right into this bridge area here. So that's quite nice, and you can turn that on and off quite easily from the controls on the top. It does also have an auto scan feature to scan through the channels, which is really nice. And I have found that the search function is very good. It could have done with the spectrum analyzer. I would have loved it if they could have put something in there with the OSD, but sadly not. The only thing we've got is a kind of, you hold the button down, it will search, find the strongest signal and lock onto it. One of the nicest features about these goggles is the inclusion of an OSD, and what I mean by that is the fact that when I adjust my brightness and my contrast, and you do it with this side to side or up and down of this left jog, exactly like you would on a set of Fatsharks, I actually get a figure come up in the top left hand corner. It will tell me the contrast number, so I always know where I am, and also the brightness number. It also tells me the battery voltage. It tells me what aerial that I'm on, and it will flash up briefly when switching between the two antennas. I always know where I am with this. It will also tell me on the display itself, when you hold down this button here, it will tell me it's in recording mode, and then a single press you will get the flashing recording, and you know that the DVR is recording what you're doing. So there's no need to pull away the goggles and look for a silly light in the middle of the goggles back here. It's all in the OSD on the goggles, and that is an absolutely wonderful thing. Really top marks to Aomway for that one. What a great design choice. There is also room for a head tracking module. It doesn't come with this, but apparently some of the later revisions of this will come with a head tracker if that's important to you. For FPV with quadcopters, it's just not something that I'm interested in, so it doesn't bother me. I'd rather have the slightly cheaper set and not have that, but that's where the port is, this little DIN connector here. Obviously Diversity will eat a little more power quicker, it will draw more current than if you're running a single module. If you're going to use, obviously if you're using the Diversity, the DVR and the inbuilt fan all running at the same time, it really is going to be eating battery pretty quickly. I mean, not super quickly, but noticeably more than if you were to just run Diversity without those other things. So I have chosen a, what is this, a 1500 milliamp 2S here, and that tends to get me through a day of flying, or, you know, it gets me through 20 odd packs without problems when I'm actually flying. So I would want upwards of that kind of capacity on a set of goggles like this, or any goggle really with Diversity. So in conclusion, there is one question left to ask. Will I use these goggles from here on? Have they been my main daily driver? And the answer is yes, they have. Over my Fatshark Attitude V1s, although they're V1s, they still work great, they still perform well, they're still comfortable, the fan still defogs, there's no reason for me to really change. I like them the way they are, they just work for me. And I have chosen to go with these, and I think that probably the highest, most important part of all of that for me is how solid and great the Diversity is on these. It really made a difference when I started flying in and around trees and behind buildings and all that kind of stuff that can really test the diversity of your setup. These Aomways, certainly paired with this antenna setup, have been absolutely brilliant. The DVR has been solid. I've had no frame drops, no sync issues when I'm syncing the footage from the DVR up with my GoPro footage. That's all been solid. I love the on-screen display. That is fantastic. I always know where I am with my battery voltage, with my antennas, with where I am, whether I'm recording DVR or not, what channel I'm on. All the important information is there in that OSD. Fatshark really need to take note of things like that and start moving with the times. So for the price, these are fantastic. They are now my daily driver, despite the slightly uncomfortable fit, which is subjective to me, guys. It doesn't mean that this is a set of goggles that are uncomfortable. For some, they are super comfortable. It really is down to your face shape. And the ones you'll be getting have a few extra functions in there, as well as that top strap. You will have the screen print here, which show you what all these buttons do. It does come with quite a nice case. And I have heard that apparently they have also tweaked the DVR, not the DVR, the Diversity firmware a little bit to make it even better. Still, it's fantastic as it is here, so that can only be a good thing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, guys, and thanks for bearing with me. I know some of you have been waiting for such a long time for this review, but I hope you also understand why I've taken a good couple of months to really see all sides of these goggles before bringing you my thoughts. It is a big purchase, and I want to make sure that you're fully informed before you go and make that decision. But in conclusion, I love them and I will be using them for the foreseeable future. All the product links, of course, will be in the description, so take a look there. I will also put links in for these two antenna, and I shall see you guys in the next one.